If an actual Marvel vs. Capcom 4 does eventually happen, I have to put up my dream roster for the game. So, let's get into it. Since Marvel vs. Capcom 2 had the largest roster to date, we need to beat that. So, for this sequel, I see having 64 characters being the set goal. This gives room for new series and characters to be included in the game. I deep dived into my favorite comic books and video games, shows, and movies so I can represent all character I have knowledge on and my favorites growing up. 32 characters from each company sound like a good way to make up for what they did to the characters in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. And just because, I would want them to bring back the 3 vs. 3 system with assists as well. The first 10 characters up from the Marvel side are Cyclops, Marvel Girl, Captain America, Blackheart, Iron Man, Black Widow, Omega Red, Star-Lord, Black Cat, and Shang-Chi. Having my boy Cyclops back is something I've been waiting for, and Marvel Girl aka Jean Grey, I would want her to not be in her Dark Phoenix form. Captain America is just Captain America. I always like playing as him. Blackheart is someone that was cool, and it would be nice to see how he would be portrayed in games now. Everything I said about Blackheart applies to Omega Red as well. Star-Lord is just someone I think would play great in the crossover games with an interesting moveset. Black Cat is just a personal choice. I always liked her character as a kid, and to see what moveset she would have would be cool. Shang-Chi is another choice that is a must-have, so I can see how the 10 rings would be utilized in gameplay. The first 10 characters up from the Capcom side are Ryu, Chun-Li, Captain Commando, Morrigan Ensler, X, Yuri Han, Urien, Captain Silver and Yellow Iris from Battle Circuit, and Wantan from Power Stone. You know it can't be a crossover game with Capcom without Ryu. I would make his gameplay different by making him a mixture of his MVC 1, 3, and Infinite versions. His mode change and Hado Kakushia would merge, allowing him to have control over his Satsui no Hado and no Ken like in the Udon comics. This would slightly alter his special moves in each mode. Chun-Li is just as important as Ryu in the crossover games and would get somewhat the same treatment when it comes to updating gameplay. Captain Commando needs to come back already. He has been in other games like Namco Cross Capcom that can bring over some new moves for his gameplay. Morrigan is a go-to at this point as well. X was a great addition for me to play and fits into these games with a great move set. Yuri Han is just a Street Fighter favorite and is a good replacement for Crimson Viper. Urien's move set would just be amazing in a crossover game, so I had to add him. Captain Silver is like Dawson but with ice powers, but his move set would be different and fresh for the game. Yellow Iris would be a new addition and replacement for Felicia. Her gameplay is fun to play in Battle Circuit. Lastly, Wantan, who is my favorite character from Power Stone. I really want to see his Super Saiyan-like transformation in battle with others. The next 10 characters from the Marvel side are Gambit, She-Hulk, Wolverine, X-23, Dr. Doom, Storm, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch, and Hulk. Gambit has always been fun to play with, so I had to add him. She-Hulk is my favorite Marvel woman character, so she has to be in the game. Wolverine is self-explanatory, he should never be left out of another crossover. X-23 was fun and her playstyle was great, and would like to see her brought back with an update to her move set, of course. Dr. Doom, Storm, Spider-Man, and Hulk are just like Wolverine. Make sure they don't get left out. I actually liked Captain Marvel in Infinite, and seeing her brought back would be nice. And Scarlet Witch is a newly found extremely light character for me, and I would love to see what her moveset will be like in the Versus series. The next 10 characters from the Capcom side are Rashid, Marissa, John Talbane, Akira Kazama, M. Bison, Rose, Strider Hiryu from the 2014 Strider reboot, Jean from God Hand, Tessa from Red Earth, Mike Hager. Rashid and Marissa Bot seem like they were made for the crossover series, so I have to see them in the new MVC. John Talbane is my second favorite Darkstalker, and it is about time they put him in a Versus game. Akira has been a thought since I seen how she played in Street Fighter V. She is also someone made for the Versus series too. M. Bison is someone who needs to come back, as he is a must-return like Blackheart. Rose is someone who I think would fit well after seeing her gameplay in Street Fighter V. Hiryu from the reboot of Strider would change up his move set compared to his last incarnations and would enhance his gameplay in my eyes. Jean is one character that I think should have been put in since MVC3. He would be a powerhouse and fun as a playable character. Tessa, who made it into CVS Chaos, now she needs to make it into the Marvel vs. series. I feel like she would have been the perfect rival for Doctor Strange. Hager, the Slam Master Champion, has to come back as he is a fun street brawler to play with. Back to the Marvel side, these 10 characters are Blade, Ikari's from the Eternals, Apocalypse, Sentinel, Dormammu, Venom, Cable, Thor, Psylocke, and Magneto for Marvel. The Vampire Hunter Blade, one of my all-time favorite Marvel characters, no thought about it, he in. Going against any Darkstalker would be an interesting pair-up. Ikari's, leader of the Eternals, was always interesting to me. I feel like he would be an interesting addition to the Versus series. Apocalypse is someone I wanted to play as since X-Men vs. Street Fighter. I know there was a way to play as his boss form, but I want to play in his regular form. Sentinel, Dormammu, Venom, Thor, Cable, and Magneto are all a must and need to make it in because I love their gameplay. Psylocke is someone I don't understand why they left out, and I played with her. I fell in love with how her and Chun-Li combos work together for me in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. The following 10 characters from the Capcom side are Donovan Bane, Azura and Deus from Azura's Wrath, Frankie Rock from Street Fighter Duel, Jada Doma, Gar from Breath of Fur 3, Kevin Straker from Street Fighter 2010, Amaterasu, Simone from Cannon Spike, and Dr. Bilston from Plasma Sword. I think Donovan has been long awaited to be included in the Versus series. His gameplay and moveset are made for the games, and he is my favorite Darkstalker, so I had to throw him in. Azura and Desu are both designed to throw hands in any Versus series. These two are on the level of the Asgardians or the Eternals. Why Capcom would leave them out is a wonder to me. Now, these Frankie Rock robots are not playable, but I feel like they would be great if they ever became playable. For this game, I would mix all these versions and give him all the things made to be in a Versus series. Plus, Capcom needs a giant robot as a playable character. Jada Doma looks too nice in Infinite, and as a villain he is just wanted. Gar is another that is a secret gem and should make an appearance as a playable character. He has plenty of moves to choose from, and as a champion fighter, he can be put to the test against other Marvel characters. Kevin and Simone both are an odd choice, but that is sometimes needed for these games. To be honest, the two fit pretty well and would definitely bring something new to the game. Amaterasu is one of my favorite characters to play as an MVC3 and has to be put in, no explanation needed. Dr. Bilston is like the Doctor Doom of the Capcom universe in some way. His genius will be great for the story, while his gameplay will be new for the series. and it is about time Star Gladiator and Plasma Sword get some more shine. The last 4 characters will be Ultron and Thanos for Marvel, Apollo Flame, and Akuma for Capcom. Ultron was really fun to play with and fulfills my long thought of could X defeat Ultron for a second time, and that's all I need. Thanos, the Infinite version, must come back as this version made him actually enjoyable. Now, Apollo Flame would be new completely. I only know his play from RPG-like play in Star Force, but he caught my eye for a crossover game. Now I think he would be another good new choice for the series. And lastly, Akuma would be just as important as Ryu for this series. I would give him his Street Fighter VI version and add that he would be able to access his Oni form during one of his super moves or a transformation. To put a little more into this dream roster, I want to add my dream villain. Final boss. Now you can't have this game without a final boss. Looking back through the history of this series, most of the final bosses were from the Marvel side. X-Men vs. Street Fighter's final boss was Apocalypse, who was from Marvel. Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter's final boss was Apocalypse and Cyber Akuma, sharing from both sides. Marvel vs. Capcom's final boss was Onslaught, who was from Marvel. Marvel vs. Capcom 2's final boss was Abyss, who was from Capcom, the first time the Capcom side had a solo final boss. Marvel vs. Capcom 3's final boss was Galactus, who was Marvel. And Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite's final boss was a fusion between both sides, Ultron Sigma. Interestingly, because they chose a fused boss, I seen Infinite as a replacement for the first game. As if they wanted to have it as a continuing game for more content to be added in the future that would catch it up to Marvel vs. Capcom 3. With that aside, I feel like we need to switch it back to the Capcom side to try and even up the final boss's choices. So, since I'm taking back to the Capcom side, I would choose Tyr, also known as Miria, as the final boss of this game. Not just one version, but both versions of her. If players acquire a specific high score, they will fight her new form created for this game. Now, you know we will have to have DLC characters. So, since there are 64 characters already, I will only do the first season of DLC. These characters are Zero, Ruby Heart, and Vigil from Capcom. You know you have to have a fan favorite on the DLC list, and I have been a fan of Zero since the first time I seen him in the Mega Man X series. Now, I do like that Zero, but I want to see his Mega Man Zero version. We got a glimpse of his play in SNK vs. Capcom CVS Chaos, but I think he can be portrayed better in this Versus series. Ruby Heart is a favorite of mine that deserves to make a comeback. Updating her would be nice, and adding the elements from her canceled game would be nice too. Lastly, Virgil. I chose him over Dante because his gameplay has a better feel to me. I absolutely love it. Switching to the other side, we have Go-Go Tamago, Mr. Fantastic, and Silver Samurai from Marvel. To be honest, Tamago was a character that looked cool to me, and I liked the character ever since. Reading about her, she seems to be one of those odd choices that games need. She seems like she would be a hidden gem on the Marvel side. Mr. Fantastic is a must at this point. He would be a different stretch type play than Dawson or Captain Silver. Plus he is a staple character to Marvel and he needs his time in the series. Lastly, Silver Samurai, who was fun to play as an MVC2, but I think he can be better portrayed in these newer installments. I also think about all the ending and characters he can meet from the Capcom side. With all my favorite characters from these two giants here, I would still have 3 go-to teams. Now, my go-to team for this game would be Ryu, Azura, and Amaterasu as Team Capcom, Cable, Iron Man, and Storm as Team Marvel, Ryu, Cable, and Amaterasu as my mixed team. Finally, sharing my dream roster with fellow fans has a fantastic feel to it. I figured with all the upcoming hype with MVC4 and the Versus collection, I had to come up with one myself. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments which character you agree with and which ones you don't. Tell me which characters I missed and which ones you think should be replaced. Until next time, Warriors.